EAA, they're on healthcare, they're on all of it across the board. Decentralization, humane living, I mean, they're with it across the board. But from the start, Michael was so hardworking, it seemed like he had a big staff, and so the New York Times would call and say, oh, we would like to speak to the head of the 10th Amendment Center, please. And of course, the 10th Amendment Center, they may as well say, because they would quote, they'd say so-and-so from the 10th Amendment Center. Well, they could just as well have said so-and-so from Michael Bolden's apartment, because that's what it was. So Michael Bolden comes, and we have this event in Topeka together. And I always say to people, by the way, you know, next time you're in Topeka, I'll take you out for dinner. Because I know that's never going to happen. So I did actually have to take him out for dinner, because incredibly, he came to Topeka. So at this event, Michael gets up, and they didn't record it. It seems to me, if you're paying expenses for people to come give a speech, you record it. Yes. Film it. Why would you waste it, right? Is anybody recording this one? Okay. I don't want to insult anybody. All right. So if there's no record of this, he was so masterful, and I'm not easy on public speakers, but he was masterful. He had them eating out of the palm of his hand. I mean, here's a guy who lives in California, you know, like walks everywhere in sandals, you know, and here he is with these, you know, suit and tie, older folks, but they loved everything he said. But he wasn't just going to get up there and just throw out red meat at them, because what's the point of that? You've got to challenge people, right? So he started saying, let's imagine, because right at that time the gun issue was really, really hot. This was about a month ago. So he said, now let's imagine a scenario where 14 states say to the federal government, we're not doing it. And we get legislators that stand up and say, we are going to resist. And we get a city where there are 1,000 shops that continue to sell firearms in defiance of the regulations, and they just stick it to them, and with every line they are cheering, yeah, yeah, that'd be awesome, yeah. And Michael says, well, actually, this has already happened, but it's not guns, it's weed. So the city with the 1,000 dispensaries, of course, is Los Angeles, and so on. Now, at first, stunned silence. Like, what did this guy just lure us into? But then, they were okay with it. Because as I've often conveyed this point, it's interesting that in 2005, when that medical marijuana case went to the Supreme Court, it was 3 southern states that joined with the plaintiff there, or I guess the defendant in that case. And that was Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And their view was, California's law, we don't like it at all, we don't want it in our states, but we are more threatened by a federal government that can tell California it can't do this than we are by California's law. And that's what a federal system is. You have your law, we have our law. So even these very, very conservative states said that's what a federal system is. And there are more and more people of that persuasion who are willing to listen to that. And let me add, by the way, that then it came time for me to talk, and I thought, well, I'm not going to be upstaged by some guy from California in my own hometown here. Well, not hometown, for heaven's sake, no, but adopted town. So I thought, okay, I've got to say something that gets them thinking, right? I've got to challenge these people myself. So at the very beginning of the evening, everybody got up and said the Pledge of Allegiance. And so I said to Michael, all right, you thought yours was good. I'm going to lecture them about the Pledge of Allegiance. He said, no, you are not. I refuse to believe that. There's no way that's going to happen. You just watch, my friend. Of course, he can just hop on a plane and fly back to California. I see these people in the supermarket. But what I said to them was, I had just gone through this whole presentation, again, which they love, you know, you build up capital with people and then you spend it. You know, even Steven. And they loved my presentation. I was talking about how uncivilized these large centralized states are. And I said, now listen, we said the Pledge of Allegiance here tonight. And I said, and I have to at least urge you to think about this one and indivisible thing, this one nation indivisible that you're saying, because that is as un-American a sentiment as you can possibly imagine. That is a French revolutionary sentiment. And let me tell you, when you tell a Tea Party person that he's accidentally done something French, that is a low blow. I said, no, that was the principle of the French Revolution, that France is not a collection of states. She is a single whole. And everything is lost as soon as we claim her to be a collection of states. But the United States is a collection of states. It's in the plural, or they are in the plural, all over the Constitution. And I went through all this, and I said that the development of Christendom occurred in a decentralized political environment, and that all the horrors of the modern period have come from centralized states, with this notion of one and indivisible. And yet you're pledging allegiance to that principle. I insist you cannot do that anymore. And I got a standing ovation from those people. So people are so disoriented right now because of everything going on, and their own leaders aren't leading them anywhere. No one's telling them about nullification or whatever, that they're actually willing to listen, I find, on a level that I couldn't have anticipated, even just briefly, even just a few years ago. So finally, I'll close with this. Well, what ought we to do now? Well, one small thing we can do is, just to get people thinking a little bit along the correct lines, is we ought to try to slip the word nullify into casual conversations. So, for example, yes, I think I'd like to have a gin and tonic. Oh, pardon me, bartender, no, I'd like to nullify that order. I think I'll have a bourbon on the rocks. That's how we do it.